Have you ever been playing a game and you thought to yourself, I wonder if I'm any better than the developers that made this game? It makes sense to wonder. You might think that since the developers are more intimately versed in the mechanics and the fundamentals of a game, they'd probably have a slight edge over the consumers that play them. They spend months or years even testing and retesting mechanics and gameplay features during the process, so why wouldn't they be any better at the game when it finally releases? But for a lot of games, I'm sure that there are devoted players that spend countless hours practicing the same mechanics and fundamentals that the devs have been practicing and would likely be able to beat the developers at their own games. So, to put this to the test, I've decided that I'm going to make a game, play it, beat it, and see if any of you can do better than me. Then we'll know for sure, are developers of games really better than the gamers that play them? Welcome everyone to Challenge the Dev. So to start out, we'll need an idea for this game. Something simple enough to make and design quickly, but also something that's fun and entertaining to play. For this game, I'm thinking something along the lines of Super Monkey Ball, where the player's just a ball object and they need to navigate some sort of puzzle or course. The objective being to get from one end of the course to the other end of the course in the quickest time possible. The player will be able to roll in all directions, and they'll have a small jump or hop that they can perform. I also want the player to have some sort of small dash ability. Dashing in games is one of those mechanics that can be heavily manipulated by the player for their use case. It can be used to rush enemies, to dodge or evade, to make a daring attempt to get onto a ledge, those kinds of things. However, I want it to have a slight cooldown so it can't be constantly spammed the entire time. Now that we have the various player movement mechanics in place, we can design puzzles and courses around those movements for our player to navigate. Some of these can be platforms to make use of our jump ability, maybe some more that are stretched out to make a combo out of the jump and dash mechanic, maybe some doors that are pressure plated. I don't want to give away too many, but you get the idea. We're building things so that the player can navigate a course. So we've got our player character, we have puzzles for them to navigate, but it wouldn't be a challenge if there weren't traps to fall into. Maybe some spikes, false or moving walls or platforms, maybe another ball that tries to knock you off the course. Alright, I think we've got enough groundwork laid out to start, so let's hop into our game engine and start development. Alright, inside the game engine, I guess apparently Unreal Engine 5 doesn't have a rolling game template, which makes things a little bit more complicated since we'll have to build a rolling character that isn't a playable character here. But at least the environment gives us a couple of things to work with right off the bat. So first things first, I guess we gotta make a rolling ball character. So the first thing that we need to do is swap out the third person character mesh with our rolling ball mesh. Then we can focus on the character movement itself. By default, the third person character blueprint already has a character movement component added to it, so we don't need to worry about moving or jumping specifically. All we need to focus on is rotating the ball when we move. To do this, we need to get the direction that the player is facing, and then we also need to get the direction that the player wants to go, and then rotate the character in that direction. All right, now, moment of truth. Let's test this. Hey, now we have a rolling ball. So you feel like a heavy ball. Okay. Wow, that's some motion blur. Holy hell. So after the initial test of the player character movement, we need to increase the rotation of the ball so that it matches the player movement speed. We're also going to get rid of that motion blur just so that whenever the player is moving, the character isn't blurry. Oh my god, yeah, that's so much better. Okay, so we got the ball. It can jump, it can move. The dash, right? We gotta do the dash. It was at this point in the development process where things started to go off the rails a little bit. See, when it comes to applying invisible forces to characters or objects in Unreal Engine, there are a bunch of different blueprint nodes that you can choose from. So picking the right node is important when developing a feature like this. And when you pick the wrong node, well, things like this happen. This'll work? Oh, Lord have mercy. What have we done? So after that dash method didn't work, I tried a different method. How'd that work out, you might ask? So. Well, that seems to be a bit of a problem. But after a quick Google search and a few edits, we were able to get the dash working properly. Oh, there we go. Oh, heck yes. Okay, so we got a dash. Oh, yes, okay, and you can do the thing. All right, I think we have a character that meets all of our requirements. We can move, we can jump, we've got a dash. that's not gonna get old. I fear that I'm just going to sit here for the next hour and just be rolling around as a little ball. Okay, no, focus. We got more work to do. So now that we got the player character set up, it's time to start building the level for the player to navigate. To start out, I didn't really have a good idea of what I wanted the level to look like, but as I started building, I quickly realized that I wanted there to be multiple branching paths that the player could take. These different paths would be easier or harder depending on how quickly the player could move through the level and get to the next section. Once I had that down, I started building a bunch of different sections that had multiple branching paths within them and laid the foundation for some obstacles to be placed. Okay, here is a look at what we got so far. So we have a couple of different areas that make up the course. So the player will start in this area here. They'll traverse forward and go through this kind of slalom jumping area to kind of get familiar. They'll move to this area here, and this will just be a little platformer to get up to the top, make their way down the staircase here into the next area. So this is a branching path of 3 different areas. So you can go left, right, or middle. Some paths are easier than others to navigate, but the ones that are more challenging offer a quicker way to get across to this section here. And then once you get across, there's a little leap of faith to get down to the lower platform. And as you move on, again, there is a couple of different ways that you can take through this section. You can go around the outside, or you can try and hopscotch your way through the middle. The outsides, I'm anticipating to have traps or things to knock you off or hinder your progress. And then as you move forward, you come up the staircase here, and this is kind of where I wanted to have, a top path and a bottom path. The top path where it will have like spikes or things to try and prevent you from getting across it easier. And then the bottom path just kind of being like a in the dark cave with a couple of holes to make it so that you can't just spam your way through here. You have to kind of think about where you're navigating in here. And then you'll come to the end here, and this is just going to be a platformer into the void until the very end when you land on this platform here. And then there will be like a little disc here that will be the stop or the end game that the player has to hit. So that's the course as I've got it so far. Now I need to start working on things that are going to make it harder for the player to navigate. So like spikes or floating, moving platforms, things of that nature. So gotta get working on that. The first obstacle that I felt like implementing were spikes. These could be placed all throughout the level and would destroy the player if they landed on them or touched them. The other obstacle that I wanted to implement were moving platforms. I designed these platforms to move either side to side or up and down after a short delay. Then I began placing them in areas of the level where I thought they might push the player, block the player, or create an obstacle for the player to overcome. Now there's only a few things left to do before our game is ready to be played. The first thing is a checkpoint system so that we can respawn the player if they fall off the level or they get destroyed by spikes. Next, we need to build a starting line and an end goal. The starting line will tell the player where they need to start from, and the end point will tell the player where they need to get to. These will work in sync with our last item that we need to add, a timer. The timer will tell us how quickly a player is able to get from the starting line to the end point. And with that, our game is finally done and we're ready to start playing. So how did I do when I finally started playing? In the interest of time, I will be brief. I spent about 3 hours in total playing the game over and over again, and there were just over 100 attempts that I put into this. I started out by getting times at around 1 minute and 20 seconds, and steadily I decreased that time more and more as I got it down under a minute. But to close out this video, I'm going to leave you guys with what I call the run. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.